Today, over 1 billion children in the world live in poverty. At Help Heal Humanity, our goal is to connect children in need with people like you who want to make a difference. Our student sponsorship program helps provide children with the necessities for a healthy and successful start to life. When you sponsor a student, you're not only giving them the gift of education, you're giving them the best chance for a brighter future. 100% of your donation supports the tuition fees, uniforms, textbook, and school supplies needed to thrive in a safe and healthy learning environment. Sponsor a student now and be the catalyst for their brighter future.
Bonjour. Good morning. Ni hao. Hola. Buongiorno. Bienvenue. Wanying. Bienvenidos. And welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each and every week, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of taking you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get one magnificent moment to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic, gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. Gemstones have been at the beginning of human existence. Stories and empires and civilizations have been created and destroyed because of gemstones. So what I do is I take those stories and I use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to empower people all over the world to discover the value of their own stories. Good morning and happy birthday to all my December babies. This is December. And before we get started, I want your help. Those of you who have been following me, this is the third year of Gem Hunter Stories, and just want to give a thanks and a shout out to my wonderful, incredible executive producer, Barbara J. Beckley, for giving me the opportunity to create this place, which I hope is a place of healing and reflection using gemstones as that model. But I need your help today because today we're going to talk about a subject that has been in my mind really from the beginning of my concept of understanding what I wanted to do with gemstones. This episode really goes into a place that I wasn't sure if I wanted to do. As I sit here, and this is my new laboratory, my new studio. I'm still getting things together. I was working on my microscope the other day. Um, but I want your opinion. Those of you who've been following the show, I really would love for you to tell me what you think about this direction, or this something that you really want to hear? And again, I always thank the people who comment, the phone calls, the texts I get, because this is your show. That's why I call this Gem Hunter Stories, because I'm not the only one. Gem Hunter is literally I want you to be able to see yourself in some aspects of what gemstones and precious metals are all about. So, Barbara, go ahead and bring up my screen for me, please. So today, I entitled today's show is Avatar, the Power of Stories, because next week will be the second episode of Avatar. Avatar last week came out. I mean, sorry, in 2009, December 16, 2009. So James Cameron is coming out with his second episode of Avatar. And again, so before we start that, I want to talk about just real briefly December. December has actually three gemstones. December is a incredible month because of just the type and variety of gemstones that's there, that are the gemstones of December. And a lot of wonderful people I know are born in December. So happy birthday, special happy birthday to them. Some of those people are dear friends and just family. So thank you. So the first gemstones for December is turquoise. Turquoise, we'll talk about. Turquoise is an ancient gemstone. A lot of people establish or think of turquoise in regards to American Indians and Indian people from India using turquoise. But turquoise has been around for literally thousands of years. Cleopatra loved turquoise. And so we'll be talking about turquoise in the episodes to come. Then there's also blue zircon. Now, zircon comes a variety of colors, but the thing that makes zircon special for December that it comes in a blue variety. So this is blue zircon. And as you can see, it's an absolutely gorgeous stone. And we'll talk about, as we do each week, what is the chemical properties of it? What is the thing that gives zircon and turquoise its power? How do people relate to zircon? How do people relate to turquoise? And how do those gemstones interact with the light? And that's what we'll be talking about. So I can't wait to talk about turquoise and zircon. And then one of my all-time favorite gemstones is tanzanite. Tanzanite is a really special gemstone in the sense of just the color, of tanzanite. When you've ever seen really, really good tanzanite, you feel like you're diving into it. You feel like you're going into just a beautiful sea. And we'll talk about what makes tanzanite, the chemical composition. The tanzanite is what's called pleochromic, which means that when you look at tanzanite in depending on the angle, that the tanzanite will have a slightly different color. So it's pleochronic, and we'll talk about that. But today, and what I need you to help me with is we're going to talk about Avatar. And again, I've been thinking about this for a long time, not just Avatar, but just really whether or not I want to talk about that aspect of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry because it's a lot darker. It's a lot darker. Each week I talk about the metaphysical aspects of it and how it's wonderful. The stone of citrine or topaz as being the stones of manifestation and spirituality. And it's not that zircon and turquoise and tanzanite do not have those properties. They do, and we'll talk about that. But what I've been avoiding talking about for a long time is the other aspects of gemstones. And it's really important to understand that because then you'll begin to understand in regards to your how do you approach stories. When I'm sorry, when Avatar came out in December 16th, 2009, I had just really finished the bulk of my gemological training. It was 2009. You know how you get into a profession and get into a field and you're excited about it, and it's like finding religion. You want everybody to understand the power of God. So that's how I felt about gemology. It was like I knew all this information. I had studied all these books and read the stories and I was ready. I knew I'm a gemologist. So when I went to see Avatar, I was excited just because I love science fiction movies. You know, those of you who know me know that, Star Wars is like a religion for me. It is a religion for me. Star Trek, Star Wars, all kinds of movies, The Matrix. I love those types of movies. So I was totally looking forward to Avatar. In fact, Avatar was the first movie I ever went to where I saw it in IMAX. And it was just those of you who saw it, and especially those of you who saw it in IMAX, it was an extraordinary experience. I mean, the colors, the technology, the CGI, the way Cameron imagined the plant life and the animal life. It was mind blowing. The technology of being able to put a human being's consciousness, their thinking, into another living being. It was so deep on amazingly different levels. And when I sat in that theater, I was just like everybody else. I was like, wow, wow. And the sound, you can feel it through the chairs, you can IMAX experience. Incredible. But I remember early on in the movie thinking to myself, almost having feelings of deja vu. I was literally sitting in the theater and as I'm watching it, and this is early on in the movie. I'm watching the movie and I remember just looking at it and saying, I've seen this story before. It's like I was thinking, where have I seen this before? And as the movie continued, I didn't really understand it all the way through. I didn't understand it until the part in the movie where the person who was running the mining operation, because I was excited when I first saw the mining trucks, when they first fly into Pandora, you realize that this was a mining colony. I saw it's called strip mining. I saw the strip mining going on and I was like, okay, this is mining. And I was excited. And the trucks that they were using, those big giant yellow trucks that they were using are the same types of trucks that they use in gemology. So I started saying, okay, all right, cool. This is similar. But it wasn't until the person who was running the whole operation said to Sigourney Weaver's character that what they were there for. And they were there for this stone called unobtainium. Unobtainium. And he held that stone in his hand and he said, "This is what we're here for. We're here because this stone is worth $20 million an ounce." Okay, a kilo. $20 million. No, I'm sorry. It was $20 million an ounce. And unobtainium, when you look it up, it actually it's a definition of a stone. It's a label that they put on a stone that really shouldn't, any stone that really shouldn't exist, or if it exists, that it's extremely hard to get. It's almost impossible to get. That's unobtainium. And there's different ways you can use that word. But when I saw him hold that gemstone in his hand and said, "This is what we're here for," then the whole movie kind of switched gears for me, because I realized at that point in time that this story was about the history of gemology, really. As I watched this movie evolve, the storyline evolve, I was like, oh my God, they're literally telling the story of the history of the way people would get gemstones. And I remember thinking after the movie was over and feeling this, I won't say rage, it just was feeling anger. That's the way it was portrayed. And what got me about Avatar, which actually started the whole thing for me, is creating ultimately what we call Gem Hunter stories, or what I call Gem Hunter stories, and me identifying myself as a gemological storyteller, was because millions of people saw that movie and very few people got what that movie was about. And it shocked me, it amazed me, it still does, that when you watch that movie right there in front of you is telling you all the things that people have done, countries have done, empires have done to other people in order to obtain a mineral or gemstone, unobtainium. And the problem that I had with this, when I felt it, I left there feeling that I wanted to tell the world the real story. And I wanted to do it so badly, but I knew in the back of my head that where I was emotionally, as I tell you all the time, I was filled with a lot of anger. So my the story that I was going to tell was one of anger and talking about the repression. You ever meet someone who, especially back in the, I'm from the '60s, so I remember the Black Panthers and a lot of the Black empowerment movements and the protests. And I felt like this is a story that needs to be told. How could people just sit there and just watch this movie and not understand it? And I want to go back to where I was in 2009. 2009 was when I first competed in Toastmasters. This was my first Toastmasters speech, and I had competed in an international speech contest. Didn't win, got to the finals, didn't win, was upset about that. But this movie came out in December. The Toastmasters contest was in April, and the movie came out in December. So even though I didn't win that contest, I knew that I wanted to tell stories. But I also knew that this was a story that I didn't know how to tell it. I didn't know how to tell this story, still don't, without allowing this story to become something really, really dark. Because what you have to understand about gemstones is the connection between history and gemstones. You have to understand that when people talk about gemstones, they always talk about just the beauty of them. They talk about, oh, how beautiful they are, and the colors and the shapes and the sizes, but they never talk about the people. they never talk about the people who actually dug up the gemstones. And the problem as the problem was for me as a person of color, when you read about gemology, when you talk about gemology, you always see, and I've told people this many times, you see the gemstone, of course. You see the person who owned the mine 9 times, 10 times out of 10 it was a white person. And then you see the horse or the mule, and then you see the guy or the woman who 9 times out of 10 looks like me, although they could be of African descent, they could be of Asian descent, or they could be African, Chinese, or Hispanic. I mean, South America, and everyone would have a name when you read these books. And I have God knows how many books on gemstones and the pictures they show, and they never talk about the person who actually dug up the stone. In 2009, in fact, well, I don't remember what year it was when what was the name of the movie? Blood Diamond. When Blood Diamond came out, and I'm sure Barbara's back there looking at it right now. Barbara, look up when Blood Diamond came out. I think Blood Diamond came out maybe 2007. It had to be. I was in gemology, so Blood Diamond came out probably 20. Ooh, I want to say 2006, 2007. But when Blood Diamond came out, the jewelry industry went crazy. Like the manuals, not the manuals, the magazines, the weekly and monthly magazines, they went crazy. They were like, oh my God, when Blood Diamond comes out, is going to thank two going 2006. Thank you, Barbara. 2006. So I was like 2 years into start doing gemology. And the industry was just terrified because they said, oh my God, once people know about the source of diamonds, they're going to freak out. This is going to change. I mean, literally, this is what they were saying. The whole industry is going to be destroyed. And this is terrible. This is the worst thing that ever happened. And I mean, imagine I'm just getting into the industry and they're telling me that this movie is going to be the end of the gemstone industry as we know it. And December of that year, 2006, they had their yearly magazine. And in their magazine, they were talking about something along the lines of 12 things that, like, instead of like the 12th day of Christmas, the 12 things that didn't happen or they misjudged. And the number one thing that they misjudged, according to the editors of this jewelry magazine publication, was the scare of blood diamonds. Because they said not only did people watch the movie, but there was an increase in the amount of people who bought diamonds, even though that movie came out. And they were laughing at just how foolish they were to think that the jewelry industry would change or people would stop buying something because of blood diamonds. And when you study gemology, what's amazing is there's all kinds of stories. All kinds of this is 2006, and I already knew how many different stories of death and destruction and enslavement and torture and all kinds of things that happened as a result of the gemstone industry. I mean, we talk about blood diamonds, there's blood rubies, emeralds, sapphires, all of them. And so here it is in 2009. Here's this movie called Avatar. And when you look up the word avatar, avatar is a word from Hindu. It's a Hindu word from India, and is talking about a spiritual deity, either manifesting himself in a spiritual. I'm sorry, a spiritual deity that either manifests themselves in some type of spiritual way or becomes the actual physical manifestation of the deity on Earth. So when you look at the movie Avatar, I'm sitting there looking at the way thousands of years of history in the gemstone world actually happened just like that. If when you watch Avatar, especially the new one coming out, I'm really interested in it. And I'm going again. This is not a criticism of Avatar. I love the movie. I love the movie. And even watching it again, I just said, wow. It was a beautiful love story. It was a beautiful the technology, the colors, the way the I love the way he was Jake was walking down and you saw the footsteps of them every time he hit that plant life. He stepped on a plant that light would come from it. The different colors that came. Um, the blue people. Yeah, it was even that was even deep. The fact that look at this the poster for Avatar. She's blue. She's blue, and the gemstone. Then the color for December is blue. Blue zircon, turquoise, tanzanite, bluish purple. And it got me to thinking in it got me to thinking about the power of stories because this movie made 2.8 billion dollars. 2.8 billion dollars, and what's so amazing is the James Cameron created a story that was truly based on real history. I mean, there are people in the world, there are cultures in the world who, even today, have been affected and changed and altered because of people like that actor sitting there saying, this is why we're here. Unobtainium. I mean, think about it. The similarities. When Columbus and any of those explorers, the whole 14th, 15th, 16th century were filled with empires, countries that literally just got on ships and they traveled across the ocean, just like in Avatar. In Avatar, they left out. We don't know what was going on in Earth. We know that there was something going on with the economy because Jake talked about how hard it was to get a job paying that kind of money or getting the health care he needed in that economy. So you know whatever was happening on Earth, the economy probably wasn't like the way it is now. Inflation, everything else. He traveled 6 years. It took him 6 years of his life in suspended animation in this spaceship getting to this planet called Pandora. So Columbus, Pizarro, all those guys literally got on ships, left Spain, left Portugal, left France to travel across an ocean for this gemstone or for gold. Then when they get there, in Avatar, they already knew it was there. But when they got there, the first thing they did was try to indoctrinate the people. As the military commander in Avatar said that we gave them, well, not sorry, the military commander, the operations, the manager, operation manager, said we gave them education. We gave the what do the blue monkeys want? That's what he said. That what was the blue monkeys? What do the blue monkeys want? So you come to someone's country, you find a gemstone or a mineral that you want or you think is there. You literally enslave the people, or at least you try to at first, be nice and negotiate because they are here and you're here. So there's already this whole concept of we are better than you. And because they look different than us, somehow it gives people the right to just take what they want. And if you're not willing to give that, then we'll just take it. And what got me about Avatar, which made me so angry and I didn't know what to do with it, was what do you do? How do you tell a story without when you know the truth, when you know what's really going on, and you don't know how to say it? Gemstones and precious metals are probably like one of the most destructive things known to man. Known to man. Gold, millions of people have died for gold. Unobtainium, whatever they did to those people, the Nabu in Avatar, they did in real. They did in real history. There's so many stories that I could tell you about empires, countries coming in and just taking. Like when Columbus came to America the first time, there was the Tainoan Indians, there was 250,000 of them. And when Columbus came the first time, of course, he was nice. Hey, how you doing? I'm from Spain. My name is Columbus. This is my boys. Here's some trinkets. Where's the gold? And when Columbus didn't get the gold, of course, he started hurting people. And he left his two brothers there. He went back to Spain with whatever he had. Of course, he brought back some people, slavery, the start of it, in New World. He brought back plants and everything else. But when he got back, again, the population was 250,000. And when Columbus got back, there was something about, I don't know, like a 2,000 left. Literally, in 2 years' time, they decimated the population. Even though what is it called? Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti, doesn't have gold there, but they got gold from other places that they traveled. And because Columbus came there for gold, and he insisted, and he thought, literally in his diary, he wrote, "It's October 13th, 1492. I haven't found any gold yet, but I see people I see brown people, so therefore gold can't be too far behind." And he enslaved the entire civilization of people looking for gold. That's Avatar. And there was no protest. The thing that amazed me, when I saw that movie, I said, "Oh yeah, people are going to protest this. People are going to look at their gemstones, not so much." And again, I'm not telling you I love the movie. I'm not, and just like I love gemstones, precious metals, fine jewelry, I love it. Not to the point where some other people love it, but I appreciate. I appreciate the beauty. I appreciate, but there's a dark side to it. There's a dark side to it. A very, very dark side to gemstones. And we appreciate, uh, 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 yeah, that's true, Charles. Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, good morning. There's a dark side to it. And it took me, I still don't know if I'm doing, and that's why I need your help. I need to balance. I need to learn how to, I'm trying to learn how to give you information about gemstones and precious metals, and yet do it in a way where it's empowering. It's empowering. And that's what we have to do in our lives. We have to take really bad situations, things, the antagonist. We have to take that antagonist in our life and find the purpose, find the value in that. And we'll talk more about that when we come back on it from the other side.
I don't know this song.
My body becomes like a cement. Oh my God.
That was the better one.
Okay. Oh my God. It's like magic. Literally like magic.
I swear I have the best executive producer in the world. Just like that commercial. Just like Irene. Irene took something, an accident that caused her chronic pain. And from that chronic pain, I met Irene. Hi, Irene. Irene is a wonderful woman. But she took that accident that caused her chronic pain and turned it into something, turned it into a business. And she helps other people that have her same condition by selling and promoting those socks. So how do you take How do you take a story, and you can see it was extremely $2.8 billion million. This movie Avatar, which comes out next week, is going to make millions of dollars. And I don't know what the storyline is going to be about. Obviously, I think it's called The Way of Water. So it's going to bring in the Naboo people who, I guess, their culture lives under the water. And what amazes me about Avatar is when you really see, and not just Avatar, but just the way people see stories, is it's amazing to me how you can see. We live in a time where you can see all the beautiful colors of Avatar, the plant life, the animal life. It was amazing. I love the flower, that the animal that when you touched it, it was just that spinning wheel thing. I love the way that looked. It was gorgeous, and yet we see it and go, wow, and I love it, and the blue and the colors and the people. And I thought about when Jake kissed Nativi. I forgot the woman's name, but his girlfriend, he kissed her, and we had no problems with that because even though they were blue, they looked different and everything. So when they kissed it, we understood and we felt their love. And yet we live in a time where people don't value other people because they look different. The same problem I have with Avatar is the same problem that I have with not problem, but the same questions that I have in my mind when you see movies about, like, let's say Star Trek, where Star Trek has all different types of species working together. Klingons and Ferengi with the big ears and all these other, and yet we love Star Trek. We say, "Wow, Star Trek," and we have Trekkies and everything else, and people dress up, but yet we live in a country. We live in a country, and we live in a world where because you come from that part of the world, you're somehow bad. You're somehow something is wrong with you. Because that's what Avatar is really, that's what Star Trek's about. That's what Avatar is about. Or at least the other thing that you should get out of there is, how is it that we love movies like that? When we go to next week, when we spend 13, 14, $15, depending on how much movies cost in your part of the world, you're going to spend that money and sit there for 3 hours and be involved and engaged with the Naboo people who live in under the water. We have to, because James Cameron has to tell that story. He has to tell how the different the life is between the people that lived on the land and the tree and the people now live in the water. What is their relationship with the water, with the different sea life and the whales and swimming and using them as transportation vehicles? We have to get into that story. We have to, as I say each week, discover the value of someone's story. There's no way that James Cameron can bring this new movie out without telling that story. And yet we can watch that story. We can marvel at the way that civilization of people live. And yet so few of us come home and think, how do I feel about Jewish people? How do I feel about Asian people? How do I feel about people that come from Europe? Why don't we have that same engagement, that same understanding of people's values the same way we do in the movies? How is it that we can watch a movie about human beings going to another planet, getting this gemstone called unobtainium? It's almost like James Cameron, and I don't. That's not what his intentions are. But it's almost like, it's amazing to me how we live in a world where people can tell. James Cameron can tell a story like in your face, literally in your face. It's almost like telling a story about slavery and making it seem like, well, yeah, it's okay, it's all right. Will Smith has this movie come out, Emancipation, and I don't know what the movie's about, but how do you watch a movie? How do you watch that story and not have it impact you? And I'm not expecting the world to be saved. If I can just get one person to realize that, whether it be books or television shows or movies, it's a story. If James Cameron is going to beat his last numbers, $2.8 billion, he has to tell an incredible story. And we can use that story. We can use that same technique that we look at a movie and become engaged in it. We become empowered by it. We can use those stories to empower our own lives. That's the power of stories. Avatar is a story about a group of people who come from somewhere else light years away. And yet, how did those people come together? Avatar, I had issues with Avatar because lots of times where it's always the white man saving the indigenous people. Always. It's like, it's amazing when again you put the word avatar, a deity that manifests himself on earth, and here is Jake, a white guy, a Marine by, hey, yeah, simplify. He was a Marine. So at least they got the right person. No, he was a Marine, handicapped. And yet we didn't take it. We didn't take anything from that. So many of us see a movie or hear a story and we don't take anything from that because we don't think in those terms. Many of us, we don't think about how something that we can see something or see another story and learn from that story, or at least reflect on how that story affects us. The power of stories. How is it that we can look at a movie that's really a historic, a beautifully dramatized or illustrated story about something that happened for real in history, throughout history? Oh, Pizarro coming to South America. When Pizarro came, he came with 180 guys. 180 guys when he came to South America, to Peru, which is now called Peru, and looking for gold. He came to the mountains and he saw an encampment of 80,000 Inca warriors. Atahualpa, who was the king, the Inca king. The Atahualpa means the Inca, actually. He was the Inca king. He had just finished fighting a war with his brother. That's why there was an encampment of 80,000 Inca warriors when Pizarro got there. And what did Pizarro do? Pizarro used his technology. His captain said, "Sir, you got 80,000 guys down there." Pizarro was like, "There's no big deal." He said, "Sir, we only got 200. No big deal." He said, "What I want you to do is feed the horses, put bells and stuff on the horses," because they had never seen horses before. The Incas. Horses are not indigenous to South America. So they brought horses to South America. They wore their shields, their armors, their metal, and everything else. They shined them up, and they came down the hill, and literally in 1 year decimated a whole civilization of 3.5 million people. 3.5 million. And Atahualpa, the king, gave Pizarro all the gold he wanted, and he killed him anyhow. How do you tell that story? How do you tell that story and not leave being angry? And that's the part that I didn't know if people wanted to know. I didn't know how to tell that story. You didn't come here every Wednesday to be pissed off or to be told, you're bad, you're terrible. No. How can we use a story to empower us? That's why I say every week, discover the value of your story. What did those people in the movie, what did those people do? How do we? Yes, okay. They used Jake was the white knight, and he came and saved the people, and that's one part of the story. But the other part of the story was the rich culture that the Naboo had, the interaction that they had with the plant life and the animals, the connection. They literally bonded. They literally bonded with the animals, and we saw that from Sigourney Weaver's character, the doctor. We saw that there was an electrochemical connection between the people and the plants and animals, and we see that. And some of us who are on that level metaphysically understand that that's true. So how do we use that story about a horrible time in human history, according to this movie, doing what they did to Pandora, and then or look at the stories of what they did in Africa, South America, Asia? I mean, gemstones. When I look at gold, people ask me all the time, why don't I sell gemstones and jewelry? And I do to close friends, family, things of this. But I don't really sell it. I don't talk about it because most people don't understand the value of it. They don't understand. Like the man said, $20 million an ounce. $20 million an ounce. And yet we never think about where it comes from. And that's what we do in life. We don't think about people's stories. We don't understand where they come from. When people call countries, when there's people who think of other countries as S countries, and as a gemologist, those terms, those words really hit home. It strikes me as just really strange because that same S country that you're talking about, or those people that you're talking about, are the same people that dug up your ring that your wife is wearing or your husband is wearing. We don't think about those things. How do you we have to come up with a different way of understanding the diversity of people. We see it in movies. Millions of people are going to go see a movie about blue people. I actually like the color. If I had to have a different color, that would be the color I would be. And whatever the movie is, because the antagonist of the movie has to be that someone either taking something, killing somebody, something along those lines. That's going to be the story that James Cameron is going to create. He has to create it from a different angle, but it never whatever the antagonist is, the people, the earthlings, the earth people coming to their planet, taking their stuff. So I don't know how they're going to spin that in this new movie. But the question you have to ask yourself is, when you go to see this movie, what are you going to get out of it? What is the story that you're going to get out of that movie? So I realized in 13 years later, I can still feel the anger of watching that movie, the rudeness of that movie. As far as it's just like watching the Naboo is no different than watching or reading about how American Indians were moved from Andrew Jackson had American Indians from the South moved from Georgia, moved to these desolate places in the Midwest, Oklahoma and everything else. Why? For gold. For Andrew Jackson, the president of the United States, made a whole group of people. That whole what's it called? The Road of Tears. That's what it was about. 10,000 women, children, elderly people died on that walk. I think it was like 300-400 miles. They walked in the wintertime because Andrew Jackson wanted to move them away from, because gold was discovered in Georgia. The gold mine still exists, and I'll do a show there one of these days. Yeah. So how do you take that period in history and that story, and how do you let it empower you? That's why I call this show The Power of Stories. What are you going to do with it? once you begin to open your mind to what stories can do, then you have a choice. You have a choice to decide how is that story going to impact you? How, as I say all the time, how are you going to interact with the light? When I tell people about my experience, the things that I've gone through, the evolution I've gone through, I have a friend of mine who asked me one time, and I think I told you this. She says, "Why do you talk about being homeless?" I said, "I talk about being homeless because not that it was a wonderful period of my life. Like, oh God, when people tell me they're going through a lot of stuff, it's like, you know what you need to do? You need to be homeless." No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you begin to understand what your story is, when you begin to understand and see your life as a story, and you talked about this last week, you decide what you want to do with it. Just like we talk about each week. Next week, we're going to talk about the metaphysical powers of zircon. We're going to talk about the metaphysical powers and the energies that we get from turquoise. And we know the American Indians, the Native Americans, the indigenous people of America, of North America, would use gemstones forever, use turquoise forever. It was a part of who they were. And it was that belief of wearing it and holding it, that belief empowered them. You can do that with stories. You can do that with stories. You can look at your story, look back, look at what you do and see how it affects other people. And the way you do that, sometimes in order to get to the value of your own stories, you have to look at the stories of others. And that's what makes a movie like Avatar so incredible. I can say that now. It's incredible, not just the technology and the CGI and all the other kind of the special effects, but how a group of people overcame. How a group of people overcame. And again, there's going to be the parts of that story that I'm going to sit there like, really? Really? But I always, because I know how stories work, I always say, well, what can I get out of that? What can I make of that story? Because again, those stories have to fit. They have to fit because a good story does the same, always does three things. A good story is memorable. A good story calls you to action. And most of all, a good story makes you need to tell a friend. So your homework assignment this week, again, welcome to December. Happy birthday, December, baby. But your homework assignment this week is to literally start writing down the way the 5 things that you do, that how you interact with the world. How do you deal with the antagonists? How do you deal with the problems in your life? How do you take your story and use it in a positive way? And I would love to do a contest. Write it down, send it to me to Gem Hunter Stories, Gmail, Gem Hunter Stories, and send me a story. Then send me 5 things that you've done in your life that you see how those stories, how those things that happened empowered other people. Until next week, I hope you enjoyed today. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller, and I want you to always take time in your day, in your week, to begin to discover the value of your own stories. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila. And Barbara hit.